Hi, Matt, and welcome to the Win It Life podcast. I've been meaning, like I said, to message you for so long and get you on, but as always, like you just we're so busy. But I'm sure, like a lot of the women that are in my program, they know who you are. They listen to your podcast. They follow you on Instagram. And you're just a wealth of knowledge. And I thought it would be really great to get you on and talk about polyunsaturated fats. And, you know, why they're not really this great fat that the fitness industry makes it out to be. And I know when I first started working with Emma and came across the work of Ray Peat, you know, I was like, oh my God, I'm like, Emma's like, Kitty, you got to get rid of these polyunsaturated fats, you know, like, and I was smashing like 12 fish oil a day, eating all of the seeds and the nuts, making almond milk. I never cooked in canola oil, which was good, I think. I feel like in America, perhaps it's potentially worse, you know, than it is maybe here in Australia. But yeah, and I really believe that this is one really simple thing that women can do that is going to dramatically, you know, improve their health and help them restore their metabolism. Let's talk about, first of all, like what is polyunsaturated? What are polyunsaturated fats? What's the difference between the different fats first?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. So there's big categories of fats, and usually foods are a combination of different fats. And so there's not something that's 100% PUFA, polyunsaturated fats. There's not something that's 100% saturated fat. There's always a combination, and there's monounsaturated fat as well. That would be like an olive oil or olives or even avocados. But PUFAs stand for polyunsaturated fatty acids, and those contain DHA, EPA, and ALA. And so those are three types of fats that we often hear are heart healthy, that are good for the brain. It's the selling point for the Mediterranean diet and for just heavy seafood consumption in the omega-3 industry. And nobody's ever questioned really if that's true, because there's just thousands and thousands, I believe over 20,000 studies on the benefits, quote unquote, of omega-3 fatty acids or polyunsaturated fats. And so people have just been kind of sold on this idea because of the scientific kind of dogma around it. But the fact of the matter is polyunsaturated fats are very sensitive to heat, light, and oxygen. So a lot of supplements that you buy will be in a dark bottle, or they'll say refrigerated, put it in the fridge to store it, because they can oxidize. And for example, docosahexaenoic acid, or DHA, that's a 22 carbon length with 6 double bonds. And those double bonds are, the more double bonds a substance has, the more prone it is to oxidation. And so that's going rancid or oxidizing. And that people don't realize that happens in our body. And so if you take like a fish oil at the store, or a seal oil, there's even shark liver oil, there's crazy PUFAs out there, squid oil, there's tons of different algae oil now, it's marketed to vegans. And if you just cook that or put it, you know, in the oven and really extreme heat it, you'll open the bottle and smell it. Ew, this is toxic. But they don't realize, once you take it, you're 98.6 Fahrenheit. You're a tropical being. You're not a cold water fish that's hundreds of feet under the ocean. And so when you take it, you're exposing it to heat, light, and oxygen. And those breakdown products are very toxic. We've been taught that they're beneficial. Eicosanoids, prostaglandins, leukotrienes. But there's ones that you've never heard about. The primary harmful one is called acrolein, acrolein. And if you look up acrolein cancer, carcinogen, there's all these studies on how acrolein is super toxic. And that is, you only get acrolein from omega-3. So that's the biggest source. Also PGE2, there's multiple other, it's called lipid peroxidation. And these breakdown products suppress the metabolism. They shut down energy production. They block thyroid hormone at every level, and really just harm the body systemically.
What because I remember, I think about when I would stay at my grandma's house when I was younger. She's dead now. Like, she lived till she was like early 90s. And, I always remember her cooking in butter and, lard. Like, she cooked in a lot of lard and would, roast meats and keep the fat and use that. Eggs. We ate a lot of eggs. What was the study? Was it Ansel Keys? Was that his name that did that study? Was it 7 countries study? And is that the one where basically he handpicked the ones that supported his hypothesis, and then from there, it became the cornerstone of like nutrition around fat. Then everyone was like, "Oh, you've got to eat vegetable oils," and suddenly saturated fats became out of fashion, and everyone was eating PUFAs instead. I actually even remember my mum. Like, we would eat Nuttalex and margarine I remember when we were younger, and it all came in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's similar to the China study and how they just cherry pick these studies. And there's actually a really strong correlation between the consumption of vegetable oils, especially in the US, with the decline of health. And so as vegetable oils go up, health goes down, and the more disease people get. And it just makes total sense. Yeah, because you look at the alternative health community, even because people will jump from allopathic or conventional medicine into functional medicine or, Chinese medicine or whatever kind of health practitioner they'll go to see. And it's kind of scary because 99% of them will recommend an omega-3 supplement. They'll say, oh, if you're not taking it, you better be on it. And so people have just been programmed, and it's like a spell, and it's really weird that no one questions it. Just like you said, Ansel Keys with the saturated fat and heart disease. Same thing with these unsaturated fats. They're highly correlated with heart disease because they'll complex with iron and create this substance called lipofuscin that I've studied a lot. And that accumulates in the heart, the liver, the brain, the skeletal muscle, throughout the entire body. And the more lipofuscin you have, the older you are biologically. And so there was a study actually in 1959 that shows that the heart accumulates 100 milligrams of lipofuscin per year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but just think 20, 30, 40 years of 100 milligrams a year, that adds up.
Yeah. Well, actually, because this is, because a lot of people ask me this, can you explain why, often people will come, they've got inflammation in their joints or sore joints, they'll take fish oil and then their pain will go away. Can you talk about like why that's lowering the inflammation and how, and why it's actually not good? Because I think a lot of people get confused and they think, oh, but I'm taking the fish oil and I feel better.
Yeah, so it's interesting. There's a connection between omega-3s and chemotherapy or chemo prevention and that whole kind of category. So they actually suppress the immune system. And so similar to intermittent fasting, which does the same, there's an immediate benefit. And that's why people are sold on a lot of these fad extreme diets, is because they're getting these short-term results, but they're not looking at long-term and where that's going. And so omega-3s have been shown, like with severe traumatic brain injury, like if there's an immediate trauma and then taking omega-3s, it could have a immediate protective effect. There's small contexts where in really extreme scenarios that it can have small benefit, but I still think there are safer ways about it than that. Maybe aspirin could be one of those. But yeah, that's mainly it. It's basically creating like a chemotherapy-like effect by suppressing the immune system. And so that temporarily takes some stress off the system.
So they don't get that inflammation, basically, which is causing the pain. So it's not actually fixing the issue. It's just suppressing the symptom.
Right.
Really,
yeah. And the long-term results, I mean, the scariest thing about omega-3s or PUFAs to me are that they get stored. And so if your metabolism's good, and we always have a little PUFAs coming in, they're in grass-fed beef, they're in pastured eggs, they're in milk, they're in everything. You can't avoid them, oysters. all the good stuff for you. But if your metabolism's working, then you'll burn them off as fuel. But most people have a sluggish metabolism because they're supplementing as well as eating cold water seafood maybe twice a week or more. And so they get stored at that point. And iron from iron fortified cereals. I was raised on Honey Nut Cheerios and tons of cereal. I mean, we're talking 70 plus milligrams of iron per bowl of cereal, and that accumulates. And like I said, that excess iron, I mean, in the spring water and the tap water, a lot of people are drinking well water where I'm in Idaho, and people don't think about where is it coming from. I mean, you see the rust in your tub, the rust in your sink, your car's rusting after it rains. That rust is iron, oxidized iron oxide. And that same thing happens in your body, but when it combines with omega-3s, it's like fuel to the fire. And it makes this melted plastic-like material that shuts down cellular autophagy, which is basically just how we repair our body. And that's what people are after when they're intermittent fasting. Like I used to do 1 meal a day. They're trying to upregulate autophagy, but really we only need that when we sleep. 8 to 9 to 10 hours, that's plenty of time to regenerate if you're, being aware of omega-3s and iron and trying to limit those.
So let's talk about then, what foods contain the highest amount of PUFA. So what should people be trying to avoid?
Cold water seafood is really up there. And I was kind of skeptical of this until I saw some prominent people in the health community that are promoting kind of the lifestyle that I used to be in, which is kind of like a quantum health, which is the worst mixture. It's spring water, it's unlimited sunbathing, it's sun gazing, and heavy, mostly just all cold water seafood diet. There's a time where I ate cold water wild Alaskan salmon every single day for lunch. I did that an experiment.
Me too, every night for dinner. Yeah.
And people don't realize, I mean, there's selenium in there. There's some good minerals in there. There's protein, of course. But you can get those things elsewhere. And when it comes to a mineral like selenium, if you're eating oysters once a week or getting beef liver, a lot of these things have the minerals in it. You don't have to get a ton of PUFA. And so I would say really limit the cold water fish. I love fish tacos. If you go out to eat once a week, I don't think it's a problem. I usually recommend people taking vitamin E because that is the seesaw, that is the antagonist to PUFA. And so polyunsaturated fats increase the requirement for vitamin E by 6 times. And it took me years to figure that out until I looked up the research. You just search vitamin E unsaturated fats, and there's tons of studies showing the connection between them. And they're always found together in nature. So all
now
those foods I mentioned.
Sorry, while you're talking about the vitamin E, maybe we can drop a link into your vitamin E supplement. I can drop it in down the bottom of the podcast for people to have a look at. Would you recommend, like, if someone, I think too, like we have clients who've got a lot of weight to lose, and you talked previously about the PUFAs being stored in your body, and as obviously you lose weight, you're going to gradually use them. So taking the vitamin E can be good. Niacinamide can be good too. How often would you recommend taking it?
Daily is best. It does get stored in the liver. And so when you take a fat soluble vitamin like A, hopefully they're not taking A or D, but I recommend E and K2.
Okay. Yeah.
Those 4 fat soluble vitamins are stored in the liver. So when you take those supplemental, about 90% of them will get stored in the liver. I'm a fan of megadosing, like an MCT oil based vitamin E, which is mine, or a really good K2 7. I also sell like purely K. And so if you take a lot, it's my understanding that it'll go outside the liver and go throughout your body to different tissues that really need it. But just switching back on the liver, which does 500 functions, I think that organ's really neglected. And I just had a consult today with a guy with a lot of skin issues. And I was telling him, like, really focus on your liver and, get that choline in from pastured eggs. I think is one of the best sources. But yeah, the other one is is omega-3 supplements, and that's definitely a no-brainer to just throw those in the trash. I wouldn't even give them to someone. If you can, return it to the health food store or wherever you bought it. But you don't want to poison someone else, so I would say just throw it in the bin. But those are, I mean, that's a big education. And I think a lot of older people are just so solidified in the mind that they're not open to changing that. But just showing them the research saying, hey, just replace this for vitamin E. Your heart will be healthier. Your brain will be healthier. You won't age as fast. Just offering an alternative to people that are open just makes sense to me. So cold water seafood, omega-3 supplements are big ones. And that's, I mean, oils that people cook in too. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, like I was going to say, what about all your like soybean oil and canola oil? Like there's no such thing as a canola. Like it's funny, like you I think like when you actually, it logically makes sense because like all these man-made, you know, hydrogenated oils, it's like, wouldn't you just eat the nice butter? Like, or the lard from the grass-fed cow? Like these are so highly processed. Not that all processing is bad, but you know, like canola oil, soybean oil, they're cheap. You know, flaxseed oil. I used to eat one of my snacks used to be tuna, a can of those little tunas with 2 teaspoons of flaxseed oil and green beans. Like what the actual, it's crazy. Yeah. So all those oils, peanut oil, what other oils?
Yeah. Sunflower, safflower, sesame. There's so many. I used to, unfortunately, grocery shop at Costco, and there might be some gems there, but the olive oil, like their Costco brand olive oil, it's insane. It's a huge thing. I think it was like under $15 US. And there are articles about how companies will cut olive oil just like a drug dealer with canola. And so I think if someone's going to, you know, I think olive oil has benefits. I think monounsaturated fats have benefits, unlike polyunsaturated fats. They still shouldn't be a large part of the diet, I believe. I think you should focus on saturated fat. But if someone's going to use olive oil, like I like it on my carrot salad, and just don't heat it. But salad. I'll stick with ghee, tallow, lard, coconut oil. Coconut oil is like the only safe plant oil. And there's different arguments with refined versus unrefined. I prefer refined, and it can go bad if it's unrefined after a while. But coconut oil's probably the safest. So,
what about let's talk about then the good old nut, because you know, like a lot of, especially me, I used to just smash nuts, like almonds, heaps of almonds. So let's talk about nuts and why you should steer clear of them.
Yeah, so I used to be a raw vegan for 4 years. I was actually 100% raw for 3 months, about 90% for 3 or 4 years. And I was doing a heavy coconut almond yogurt. I would make it at home. And thankfully, I was getting a good amount of saturated fat. I'd get the young Thai coconuts, blend the water, the meat, and then actually soak and sprout real unpasteurized almonds, which you can't buy in the store. I had to always buy them online in bulk. So it was not very sustainable of the lifestyle. But there is some evidence to show that when you soak and sprout your nuts and seeds, it does reduce the amount of anti-nutrients in them. But at this point, I just don't crave them. I used to do a lot of sprouted sunflower seeds, and I was just really obsessed with enzymes. And I think there's something to enzymes, but we can get that from raw egg yolks, or from raw liver, or medium rare steak. We can get enzymes a lot of places, or even just taking them in a capsule form. But there's really I call them bird food now. And so when I used to go rock climbing with my friend, I would have trail mix, that standard. I'd like
with the seeds, the pumpkin seeds and shit in it. And like the best thing was the dried fruit. But it was always probably it was with canola oil in there. You look at a lot of the dried fruits at the supermarket, and they've got preservatives and bloody canola oil, which is a pain. The old nut mix, I used to smash that too.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the polyunsaturated fats in the nuts and seeds are very prone to oxidation.
Mm.
The vitamin E is always with them to protect, but it's nowhere near like you would get 400 IUs in one capsule. We're talking like less than 20 IUs or 10 IUs for a handful. It's not a lot of vitamin E. And so I always tell people, if you're looking for snacks, make gummies at home with gelatin and sugar, or dried fruit. I like a company called Solely Fruit. They're a California company. They have like pineapple and mango. It's my favorites. And then just dried meat. You can make pemmican at home, or you can make your own jerky, or buy jerky with brown sugar and that's clean, that doesn't have soy in it. And just make those your snacks. And if you can, carry your milk around in a little cooler. I do that often when I'm on the road. But there's just so many, there's so many more things to support your metabolism than like bird food, nuts and seeds. And if you enjoy them, if you think there's some good minerals in them, I think a few in the morning, but not handfuls and handfuls. If you just have that kind of emotional attachment, have a couple almonds maybe a day, but I don't think there's much benefit. I mean, the mineral thing is just so misunderstood, because the main selling point with, let's say, almonds or walnuts is, it's full of these, minerals that are amazing for you. Well, you know what else has minerals? Milk, awesome source of selenium, of copper, best source of calcium. There's ionized calcium in there. And beef liver, amazing source of copper. And I'm a big fan of shilajit. And there's just so many better sources of minerals than nuts and seeds. So
I think and it's something that I never thought about until, I met Emma, and then, found Ray, and this sort of way of eating is looking at a food and going, okay, it does have those minerals, but it also has anti-nutrients and digestive inhibitors. So it's like understanding, can my body actually absorb these nutrients, and is it easy to digest, or is it going to really irritate my intestines? And when you think about it like that, then you're like, it actually really makes so much sense, because you're like, well, I don't want to make my body work hard to try or put all of this garbage into it that it can't digest. Like you think about your small intestines, and they're sensitive. You put all this bloody, fiber in there and all this other shit. It's just like shoving shit down a drain pipe, and it, expands and irritates it. And but I guess it's so hard because, like everywhere you look, like all the fitness models that I used to follow, and all the health gurus, like they're just, this is just an example, like this one chick that I follow on Instagram, she's got a great ass, and she's young, but, and like really lean, but like I watched her make her breakfast one day, and it's like an oat milk smoothie with pea protein, and like you just see all this diet advice, and you think, oh, no wonder women are so confused, because they see these women and they're so lean and they look healthy and they look amazing, but yet they don't realize like what's going on underneath. So I think it's really hard for women. So just to finish off, let's do a recap. So what are the ones to stay away from?
So omega-3 supplements, you could probably say that's number one. Cooking oils, or looking at your processed foods. And if you see vegetable oil, canola oil, it's in a lot of things. I'd say most processed foods have it. And so that should be the first thing you look for in a supplement or a food. If you're getting something in a box or a can or package, is vegetable oil, canola oil. Throw it away. Don't take it. And just only cook in saturated fats. So coconut, ghee is one of my favorites. I'd say ghee and coconut oil are my favorite.
I love ghee.
That's clarified butter.
Yeah,
butter's kind of hard to cook in. Sometimes it gets weird and
it's a bit watery. Like it's the ghee's better. Like we cook our chips every night, potatoes in the ghee, and it just goes more crispy, and it's got that yummy, really buttery taste. Ghee. What else do we say? Butter, ghee.
Fat.
Yeah,
you can do like hump fat or camel fat. I've tried that. It's a little gamey, but there's goat ghee. You can have fun with it. There's a lot of options. You're not just limited to certain ones. Even duck fat and goose fat. There's probably a little more polyunsaturated fats. We actually just processed goose on our property here and collected the fat that we have to render. So that's good if it's local. The other one is cold water seafood. Limit that. Focus on shellfish. We love clams. Oysters are great if you can get them. If you can't, desiccated oysters are an option, just like desiccated beef liver. But the real thing is always better. And so instead of focusing on cold water fish and salmon, if you are going to eat salmon, don't eat the skin, because that's where a lot of the PUFAs kind of congregate. It's my understanding, in the skin. And I'll always take vitamin E if I eat salmon. Focus more on warm water fish, whitefish primarily, and shellfish. I mean, oysters and clams are a better option. Those are really the three things. And then maybe nuts and seeds. Switch up your snacks. You know, if you're attached, if you like the texture and the flavor, then just really minimize it. I mean, just a tiny handful a day. I don't think it's going to really be a huge harm if you're doing everything else right. But I think once you heal your metabolism, you kind of feel the difference if you have nuts and seeds. And wow, I feel a little sluggish after that.
Yeah. And what, Matt, let's say someone, like, because I don't eat out that much anymore, but let's say someone, you know, you go out and you go to a restaurant, you can't always tell like what they cook the food in. And you talked about taking the vitamin E. So if you went out and had a meal and you thought, oh, there's probably some PUFAs in there, how much of the vitamin E would you take after when you got home?
Really just one capsule. And the ideal thing, if you have a purse, throw the bottle in your purse, and you could even take it in your car before you get out of the car to go into the restaurant, because it circulates for hours. It's not just an immediate thing. So you can take it before you go into the restaurant. That would probably be the best thing, more than after, because it'll immediately protect you. And 400 IUs, it's not much. It doesn't take much to do it. But also, I would ask if they can cook in butter. And then, unfortunately, you have to ask another question: is it real butter and not margarine?
Yeah.
So it might just be easier to skip all that and just take your vitamin E. I feel like it's a complete mitigation. I would eat a canola oil meal, which is, to me, pretty much every time you go and eat out. I mean, even there's a local spot that has French fries that I love, and they're cooked in peanut oil. They're delicious, but I just take vitamin E.
Yeah. You know, I know.
Real life.
Yeah, it's like, I know what you mean. I wish there was this great fish and chip shop near us where we used to live that cooked in lard instead of vegetable. I was like, wow, like you just don't see that very often because obviously it's more expensive. Okay, awesome. All right, so I'll drop the link to the site with the E so they can check it out. And obviously, you know, I'll put your Instagram handle down there if people don't follow you already, so you can check him out. But that was really great and really, really informative. And I think if you're listening to this and you're really confused where to start, like this is just one thing that you can do now that's really going to have a big impact on your health and your metabolism.
Yeah, and on my website too, I have low PUFA donuts. Which I grew up with donuts. I really miss them.
I love donuts.
Every single spot is canola oil. Yeah, you can make them at home. The downside is you need to buy like that kind of bucket of coconut oil.
Oh,
you have to, you know, fry them in the coconut oil. So it takes a lot, but it's so worth it.
Craig and I often say that. We're like, we should get like a little deep fryer and then, you know, get the coconut oil. And we should, because one thing I love is like fish and chips. I just love like a nice piece of, or a scallop, a potato scallop. I'm like, I just can't bring myself to eat the shit from down here at our, I'm like, it just make me feel too shit. But yeah, I'm like, if we got a little deep fryer, we could make some chips. Like they'd be amazing. Yeah.
We need to inspire some people to open good restaurants that are low PUFA.
Totally. Oh, and one more thing I want to add, guys, or ladies, everyone who's listening. If you love, like, I don't know what you call them in the States, crisps, like potato chips, like, you know, like they're dry, they're not hot. There's a really great brand that you can buy here in Australia called Boulder Canyon, which are like cooked in coconut oil. And I just love chips. So like, I think if you love them, just get them. And there's probably a few more brands in the States you can get as well. Hey.
Yeah. Honest Jackson.
I've heard of them. So. Yeah,
I think those two are the best.
Yeah, so get them. So like I always thought, I really want to eat chips, and now I just eat them, and they're really amazing. But thanks so much, Matt. That was really great and really informative, and I'm sure it'll really help the listeners. And I'm going to get Matt on again soon, and we're going to talk about water, aren't we?
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll give ourselves a bit more time because we sort of spent a lot of time having a chat at the start. But that was great. Thanks so much, Matt, and I'll see you again next time.
Yeah, thanks, Kitty. That was so much fun.
Bye.
Bye.